Welcome to Dose of Social, your recipe for social media success. I'm Lindsay Mao.
I'm Kayla Perlstein.
And this is Dose of Social.
I like how you only do that when it's just us.
I enjoy it.
We don't want to scare our guests too much.
No, we like to have fun, but sometimes, yeah. Anyway, so today's episode is a doozy for y'all. It is a Kayla doozy. We are going to be talking to Kayla today about time management and organization as not only as a business owner, but as a social media manager who is managing multiple social media accounts.
Yes.
All right, Kayla, you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, Kayla, you have touched on this in our intro episode of Dose of Social, but I wanted to just briefly ask you this as we get started and talk about time management. But what inspired you to start your social media business?
I remember that I had a full-time job and I loved the marketing side of things, but not the other side of the world that I was in. And so when I was applying for jobs, I kept being told that I didn't have enough experience. And so that's actually how I met Lindsay. We talked about this in a previous episode. I took one of her classes at General Assembly and kind of self-taught myself. And my business actually kind of started on accident, if I'm being honest. I got some pretty big clients when I first started out freelancing. And so to protect myself, I started my business, and then it kind of snowballed into what it is today. But it's just proof to show that, I mean, I didn't go to school for this. I kind of learned everything on my own and built what I have today myself with the help of people that I know. But sometimes you just need to take that risk and see what happens.
I love it. I love it. So you manage multiple clients' accounts. Can you share with our audience how many accounts you are currently managing?
Currently, I think we have about 23 clients, and within those clients, there might be additional pages that we're managing. So technically more than that, but 23 clients about.
All right, that is a lot, and that's a lot of platforms to juggle and toggle back and forth between. So how do you structure your day to ensure you're productive while you're managing multiple clients and projects?
Yeah, so I should first say that I have an amazing team. I have a great project manager that has come onto our team recently, and we have multiple social media managers on our team. So everyone kind of has their assigned tasks and specialties. But my day in particular, you guys are getting a little peek behind the curtain here. I am very organized. I color code everything. I write everything down as well as put it in my phone, so nothing gets missed. But I make a to-do list every day. If something on my to-do list didn't get done that day, I typically put it to the top of my to-do list the next day. Obviously, you have to kind of weigh out what is urgent and what is not as urgent. But, you know, day to day, there's client postings that I have to help with. I know we're going to get into this a little later, but I still work in my business about as much as I work on my business. So handling some client day-to-day things. I work with a lot of local clients to help generate content. So I'll go to their office or their home and help with content.
So Kayla, you mentioned you write everything down as well as you document it. What tools and systems are you using to ensure that you're staying on top of all of your deadlines and deliverables across your various clients?
Yeah, so we'll start with my old school tool. I love a planner. So I have a very large planner that I use day to day. All of my clients are color coded, and I just write down everything that needs to happen that day for that client, as well as adding things into my calendar on my phone. And then we also use Monday.com as a team. So we've set up automations in there. When I assign tasks to certain members on my team, they get an email about it. When they've completed the task and it's ready for my review, I get an email. Once I go through and check everything and edits are needed, I can change that automation and they get an email about that as well. So really keeps us streamlined there. We are also a very big fan of Google Drive. So all of our clients are organized on Google Drive. We do all of our content calendars on Google Drive. We store all of the content there as well. So everything's really organized by client in there.
Yeah, you've got to stay organized. And I love that you're using Monday.com. That's your project management software?
Yes. I also use it for myself to kind of keep track of, I call it the GBM Client Hub. So I made a separate board that keeps track of our clients, what stage they're in, how much we're bringing in monthly, and our lead generation systems in there too. So
that's great. How do you prioritize tasks, Kayla, when everything feels urgent?
That's a great question. This could be a positive and a negative, but I do everything with a sense of urgency. So I have to remember that not everything is urgent, but I'm always very quick to want to do things. I'm very quick to respond to emails, which our clients really love. I'm quick to get back to people in general. I like to have a quick turnaround. Our team knows that in general, we have a sense of urgency because sometimes with social media, you have to. But when it comes to certain client tasks, for example, we know when content calendars need to get started on, when they're due. We plan content out a month in advance. We create the whole strategy for more than that. But as far as content calendars, that's created a month in advance. So we know when content calendars are due. We want to make sure that those content calendars are sent in on time. So our team pretty much knows when to start on those calendars. We let clients know during their onboarding process that we can do last minute tasks, but we request a 48-hour turnaround. So if something like that comes in, we'll prioritize that over a content calendar, for example. We might need to pause and handle that. But typically it's kind of a day-to-day thing. Obviously, social media is always changing. Fires can come up at any moment, just depending on what's been posted, if you have a troll. So it kind of depends on the situation, but in general, we'll take it day to day, and we have pretty good systems and processes in place. So if something urgent comes up, we know how to handle that.
That's great. And I can attest that Kayla is very responsive and good at responding to emails quickly.
I'm also very good at follow-up.
All right. So Kayla, you are a business owner and you are also working a lot on your clients' content. You said you go to your client's house or office to film content sometimes. How do you manage time spent on creative work, like creating content calendars and creating content on behalf of your clients, versus your admin work?
That is a very good question and still something I am working on. But I personally have to block out time. I try to do once a week minimum. I like to try to do it twice a week if I can, but I have to literally block out time on my calendar to force myself to sit down and work on the things I need to work on for my business, because if not, I'll continue working on things on the business. But it's very important to take that time to work on your business and not always in your business, because, I mean, you're the one that needs to get it done, so.
Yeah, I think time blocking is super important. One thing that I do is on Fridays, usually Friday afternoon, I block out some time for me to do that specific work on my business. So
I'll be honest, I like to try to take Saturdays off for myself if I can. But Sundays, I kind of like to take that time to work on my business because, one, nobody's emailing me, so I kind of am able to get things done without any interruptions. And two, it just makes me feel like going into that next week, there's been a little bit of a weight lifted off of my shoulders for the things that I've gotten done that Sunday. So,
well, this is a nice segue into work-life balance. So your job can be very demanding.
Yes. How
do you avoid burnout, and how do you balance your personal life with your business?
Another great question. I'm honestly surprised I haven't gotten burnt out at this point with doing this for over 8 years. But I guess that's kind of also what happens when you enjoy what you do. I take the time to do something for myself every day. I had a friend that told me that once, and I really took that to heart. So my personal escape is the gym. I'll take, 30 minutes to an hour to go do a workout because that's kind of how I stay sane. I've also started doing date nights with myself. So on a Friday or Saturday night, I'll just make a charcuterie board, have a glass of wine, watch a movie, and kind of just decompress for a little bit. But it's really important to have that work-life balance. I do feel like I'm working all the time, but I also feel like I'm taking the time for myself to do the things that I need to do that make me happy too.
And Kayla is really great at working out and CrossFit and lifting weights. I went to do CrossFit with her last night in a barn in 30-degree weather.
I think it was lower than 30.
It was I was in 4 layers, but it was awesome. So and she's got an amazing community of CrossFit folks here. So
Yes, Little Harpeth CrossFit. Check it out. If you're in Nashville, it's free.
And check out their Tumblr.
Yes.
How do you handle the pressure, Kayla, of constantly being online?
I want to say I've kind of just learned to adapt with it. I think part of being a social media manager is knowing that you kind of always have to be on. I spoke about this on a panel at SMCLA a couple of years ago, but I worked with a national company in the food industry, and some things had happened on the back end, and it was over Thanksgiving, and we were just getting negative comments all over Facebook due to something that had happened with the founder. And I was sitting at the Thanksgiving table every 20 minutes going in and hiding Facebook comments. So things happen. It's social media. You kind of always have to have that always on attitude, but also making sure to put those boundaries in place so you're not constantly just 24/7. That's going to lead to burnout.
Yeah, or if you are going to unplug, making sure you have a backup plan that someone else can step in and help you out.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into more on organization and dive a little bit deeper into that, because you are someone who is self-proclaimed super highly organized, and anyone who's worked with you also knows how organized you are, which I think is a superpower, quite honestly.
Yes.
Before we dive back in, let's give a quick shout out to our incredible Season 2 sponsor, the Sapphire Suite.
Are you looking for a space that inspires creativity, fosters connection, and supports you in growing your business? Located in the heart of Franklin and Cool Springs, Tennessee, the Sapphire Suite is a co-working space designed exclusively for entrepreneurs and business owners. Whether you need a stylish spot to host meeting, a quiet corner to focus, or a supportive community of diverse thinkers who will challenge and support you, this is the place to be. Subscribe to our newsletter and receive a free day pass to experience our amazing community of business owners for yourself.
This episode of Dose of Social was brought to you by the Sapphire Suite. Thank you so much to the Sapphire Suite for sponsoring Season 2 of Dose of Social.
So how do you keep track of all the different deliverables? So you've got your client content calendars, then you have the approval process, you have client feedback, you have analytics. How do you manage all of these moving parts all at once?
So I think that kind of really goes into our systems and processes, which I've built over the years of having a business and then learned things along the way. I even tell my team, just because I do things this way doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. This is just how I like it done. If you have a suggestion to make things flow faster, flow better, or run smoother, I'm always open to hearing that. But so for example, with our Google Drive, we have a folder for every client. Within that folder, we have an elements folder, which houses their logos, photos, videos that they send us or that we create. We also have a content folder, which houses the content per month. So within the content folder, we'll have a January, February, March, etc., with all the content in there. We also have our content calendar in that folder. And then I have a contracts and docs folder in the client folder as well, which houses their contracts, any meeting notes, intake forms, all of those important documents. So we know where everything is when we need it. With our content calendars, we send the content calendar, which has a space for feedback for clients to leave feedback, but they can also leave comments on the images themselves in the Google Drive, which is why I love Google Drive so much. So certain clients who are a little more tech savvy than others like to do things different ways, but we have a folder for reports as well. So everything's really organized. We have a great system there and on Monday.com. So as things come in, I make sure that everything's kind of handled with whoever's working on it. And Monday.com also allows you to add due dates, which has been really helpful for my team. So they know when things need to come to me, and then I check them out. We might have to do a little back and forth, and then it goes to the client.
That's great. And I know that you organized our Dose of Social assets in that same format, and it was super helpful. So that's great. It is super important to have everything organized across your client assets. So that's awesome.
I also wanted to shout out one of our clients, but she's almost as organized as I am. And so as she was uploading content for us, everything was uploaded within a folder of what the content was, which we haven't had clients do that before. So that was super helpful.
Yeah, properly labeling content too is really helpful. So if you are a brand or a business that has a lot of content and you are starting to work with someone on the social media or marketing side, being able to label that for your team, your agency or the business that you're working with is super helpful. So yeah, we could do a whole episode on properly labeling assets.
Yes.
All right. So how do you ensure effective communication between you, because you've got you, your team, and your clients? How do you make sure that there's effective communication going across all the different parties?
So one thing our business is known for is when a client comes on to work with us, I'm not just signing you on and sending you off to somebody else. I am very much involved in every single part of the process, and I'm the one that's client facing. So everyone's going to talk to me. You're going to be working very closely with me. So most of the communication goes on the back end between myself and my team because I'm the one that's sending things to clients, scheduling calls with clients. But our team knows the importance of communication. Sometimes we have to just kind of send a little reminder, but we use Slack to stay on top of everything as well as Monday.com. Again, the due dates are super helpful to communicate, so I'm not having to constantly follow up for things. I know when to expect certain things, and sometimes the team will send it in earlier. Like I had mentioned before, we've onboarded a project manager, so she's going to also start to be a little client-facing as well. But I think the importance of communication is obviously communicating and making sure you're being extra communicative. People can't read your mind, so if there's an issue or there's a reason you did something, communicate those things. If you have a team, we have a travel board on Monday, so I tell my team, obviously people need to take time off and do things and go and travel, just making sure you hit your deadlines, but also letting me know when you're going to be out of town so I know to not bother my team when they're traveling. But just to be super communicative about if you know that there's a deadline due, but you're running behind and you're going to have it by this time or this day. So I'm not the one that's coming after you like, hey, this was due today. What's going on?
Yeah, staying on top of all those different deadlines and different folks who are working on across your different projects is an art in itself. So Kayla, let's talk a little bit about revisions. What is your approach to managing revisions and feedback that your clients have without losing momentum?
I personally believe the more feedback, the better. We have some clients that are very detailed with their feedback, and I tell them how much I appreciate that every single time because it also cuts down on the back and forth for revisions. So we've had clients that will give us revisions, we make the revisions, we send it over, and then they give us another revision that was never even mentioned the first time. That hurts us on time, especially if we're under a time crunch and we need to hit a deadline. So if you are giving your social media manager feedback, give them feedback on everything. Obviously, sometimes our eyes can miss things and you might not catch it until the second round. But I mean, we have 2 clients right now that are super detailed with feedback, and one of them always feels like she's overwhelming me. And I tell her, no, like this is great because all of that feedback we can take, make all of those edits and get it back to you and hopefully nail it on that second round because of everything that you told us.
Yeah, I would say the more clients can give feedback, the better you're going to be at getting it more aligned with what they're looking for the next time too. So it's hard to know those things if they don't give that specific feedback.
And I think that kind of goes back to communication because as important as it is for your team to have communication, the communication is just as important between you and your social media manager. So if you're a small business hiring a social media manager and you're not giving them all of the details that they need. So for example, we use an intake form that's very specific to clients. But in general, we'll ask about what types of brands inspire you, that you like their design, who are your competitors, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're not providing this information to your social media manager, they can't read your mind. So if you don't like the color blue, but you don't say that anywhere and it's in your brand guidelines, they're not going to know to not use blue.
True story. True story. That's good advice. So let's talk a little bit about tips for folks who are listening here in the audience. This has been full of great tips, but are there any specific habits or practices that you now 7-8 years into your social media business wish you would have adopted earlier in your career that you could share with someone who's just starting out?
I mean, I would say taking time for yourself every day, even if it's just going outside for 10 minutes to take a walk. Sometimes your brain just needs that break from the screens. I would say as I've grown, my systems and processes have grown. So really trying to put that in place from the start. Like I said, I'm self-taught, so I kind of learned as I went, and I'm continuing to learn because that's kind of how the world is with social media. We're continuing to learn every day. But I think trying to figure out those systems and processes, they don't have to be perfect, but start to put them together and then, keep it as a working document and build it as you grow.
Yeah, that's good advice. And what about time wasters? Like, what are some of the biggest time wasting mistakes that you see social media managers making, and how can they be avoided?
I think the biggest thing I've seen is not having a plan or not having a strategy. They kind of just are posting to post because that's what they like, or something's trending, so that's what they're putting out. But you really have to have some type of strategy behind your posting and planning ahead. So when we run our audits and build our social media strategies, we plan for the upcoming months ahead based on, the national holidays that are coming up or specific social media holidays for clients that we can build a campaign around. So then when it comes time to build the content calendar for March, which is, International Women's Day, it's National Women's Month, you have
and
this
also
whole
your
idea.
Birthday. Sorry.
Yes, my birthday is on International Women's Day.
Sorry, had to interrupt and give you a shout out because this awesome woman was born on International Women's Day. So.
But we have a client that I had given her a heads up ahead of time about, she knew about International Women's Day because we had done a post the year prior, but with it being National Women's Month, I was like, what can we do with this to make it a little different than last year? And because we let her know ahead of time, she had the time to plan out, and we had a whole campaign with all of these videos of people honoring a Southern woman in their life. It was actually really cool.
That's awesome. I would also, if I could just say one thing too about social media managers is not getting sucked into the feed and endlessly scrolling like when you're in accounts. Like I've seen that happen too, and that's a big time waster. So like if you're in an account, like get in and post and do your thing and get out. Don't start mindlessly scrolling. All right, so Kayla, looking ahead, how do you stay ahead of trends? Because you mentioned earlier that social media is always changing and evolving. How do you stay ahead of trends in social media while also managing your workload?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I said, we try to plan ahead as much as we can. Obviously, sometimes trends just happen. So that kind of goes into, I believe, the urgency part that we were talking about and how you prioritize. So depending on the client and depending what the trend is, sometimes you need to jump on it sooner than later. Also, I would highly suggest going back and listening to our episode with Robert, who is an e-commerce and entertainment lawyer.
Yeah, Robert Freund. This is episode 3 or 4 of Dose of Social.
Yeah, for example, right now, the Wicked trend is going on, and people are creating all of these memes around images of Ariana Grande and people in the cast, and that's actually something you can't do. So I would suggest going and listening to that episode before hopping on trends moving forward, because I know with a lot of the award shows coming up and the Met Gala, people like to hop on those trends by creating memes, and we actually can't use those images.
Yeah, so make sure you are prepared from a legal perspective.
Yes. Even though the big brands are doing it, I always like to bring it to my clients' attention. At the end of the day, they're going to make the decision, and if that's the decision they want, I know that I've said my piece with it, and if something was to happen, we can't be held liable for that because I said no.
I let you know in advance
Yes.
that this was a possibility. Very good insight. So to wrap this up, Kayla, I want to ask you one question about your job, actually maybe two.
Okay.
But the question is, if you could automate any portion of your job, what would it be?
I don't know what I would automate, but I think I would maybe have like another robot of myself.
A Kayla clone.
Yes. I think that would be most helpful.
The world needs more Kaylas. I agree. Kayla, what's the most rewarding part of running a social media business for you?
I think the most rewarding part would be when I'm working closely with my team to come up with the strategy and create the plan, and then we see it come to fruition and how happy the client is with the results that they get from it, or just from how it looks in general. That really makes me feel good. We have clients that don't like being on video. I've had to go to their house or office to get video content, and then we put it together and create this really awesome reel and send it to them, and they're like, oh wow, this is great. And they hate being on cameras.
I witnessed this while I was here in Nashville this week, and it was very funny because the client did not want to go on camera, and the video was great.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Kayla, this was super insightful, and I truly believe that your amazing time management and organization skills have been so instrumental in your success in your business. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who was listening today. I would say, just as a recap, take a look at some of these project management tools that Kayla spoke about. Monday.com, Google Drive, good old Google Drive.
If you're looking for other project management tools, I would suggest looking into Trello and Asana. They personally just kind of overwhelm my brain, so Monday.com was a better option for me, but also great tools to look at.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kayla, for being here today and talking with us about time management and organization. I know that because you're so organized and great with your time, that's how you're able to manage so many projects and be successful at it. So kudos to you.
Thank you. My team is also great.
Yes, they are. Thanks for listening to Dose of Social. I'm Lindsay Mouth.
I'm Kayla Perlstein.
Bye.
Bye.